Hello, and welcome to the Choose to Be podcast. Okay, today we are diving into part 4 of resentment. First, we thought it was going to be a single episode, which turned into 2, which turned into 3. Now we're at 4. So, today, what I want to talk about is resentment for you, the betrayed partner, because it's really common. And I will just start by saying I've been here. I have embodied resentment at different points. I have lived it. I have had to work through it. And resentment can be kind of sneaky. So I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper into resentment here in just a minute. But I think what I want to do is just start by saying resentment is incredibly common when you've been betrayed. And I am not here today to tell you that we're going to let it go, that you're doing something wrong, that it means that you're bitter or unhealthy or something's wrong with you or you're failing in some way because you might have resentment yourself. We're not going to do that. It's really common. It's actually quite a natural response to what you've been through. So let's dive deeper into this today. But what I want is I want to first begin by differentiating the difference between anger and resentment because they're not the same thing. Anger is an immediate emotional response that you feel. And anger is very normal after betrayal trauma. But so is resentment. And resentment is more of a stored, ongoing emotional energy. So resentment can happen with anger suppressed for a long time over time. It can happen through frustration that's been held and stored and not worked through. I see it especially common when you have a partner who your significant other isn't doing the work or is kind of doing the work. I will see resentment start to grow and start to build because you're not getting a resolve. And so, again, anger, immediate, it's emotional response. Resentment is more of the stored, ongoing emotional energy. So, why this shows up specifically with betrayal? Resentment forms when pain wasn't chosen, safety was taken from you, and when you didn't have agency. So, those are really common reasons why resentment forms. And a lot of statements that I'll hear is things like, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't choose this. I now am the one having to do the work that I didn't cause. Or they get recovery and I get trauma. Another one that I remember hearing myself when I was going through my journey was, it feels like my partner's come out of the closet of their hiding and I've been thrown in it. So those are some of the things that I hear that show that there is this deeper level of pain and resentment there. And I like to look at resentment as a protector. So thinking of IFS, internal family systems language, we have all of these different parts of us and we have parts that show up that want to protect. And resentment wants to protect you from the harm being minimalized. It wants to protect you from premature forgiveness and maybe even putting yourself in dangerous situations or emotionally dangerous situations too soon. Or it can be a protector part that's trying to protect you from being gaslit or rushed. And I think even deeper under that is another layer of protecting you from the deep grief, the deep pain of the loss of relational safety, the deep attachment wound that is truly there at the core. And I would say also loss of who you are, that feeling. You're still there, but you can't access it in the same way. And so you feel like you've lost yourself. And when you have all of these really intense feelings that don't just go away, right? You don't work through this and in a week or two or a month or two, you feel better. It's this long lasting pain, which then can build this resentment. Some of the ways that this can look like, some of the ways that you'll see it present itself, and it can show up emotionally, cognitively, behaviorally, spiritually, but some of the internal experiences that you may feel would be chronic irritation or on edge, emotional shutdown and numbness, an internal feeling of feeling hardened or superior or I'm good, I'm over it. Another one is the ruminating thoughts or the looping thoughts. But the reason I'm hesitant to say this one is that is just a common response to betrayal is the ruminating thoughts. But when you're not ruminating anymore on the flashbacks of what they did, you're more just thinking about and ruminating on them, their choices, what they're doing, what they're not doing. Those looping thoughts can lead to long-term resentment or be presenting a little flag that there might be resentment underneath. Just a thought here is these protector parts. Sometimes I see them get weaponized against you, that your partner will say, you're manipulating me or you're just trying to get me to do something. And I just want to be clear, this is your nervous system responding. But when your nervous system has to respond in these ways, in these protective ways for a long time, it can fuel and build this deeper level of resentment. And sometimes the resentment starts really little, but over time, it just keeps stacking up and stacking up. And it can become like that volcano to where it explodes. And what we don't want is we don't want that for your healing. So this is really going to be about you, what you need, what you want in your own healing journey. And really, when we don't address the resentment, it can quietly shape your behavior and your identity. I have this book that for those of you who are watching on video, you can see this book. It's a therapist book, and it's called Trauma Recovery Guidebook for Therapists. And it's got all of these really cute little pictures in it. And it's a huge book, meaning the pictures are really big. And when I'm working with people in person, it's quite wonderful. But there is a section in there that I remember the first time I read it, and I was already a therapist, but I thought that they highlighted it so well. And what it does is it talks about instinctive defenses. So we as humans have these instinctive, meaning we're not choosing them, defenses that show up to protect ourselves. So the fight, flight, freeze, submit, attachment, cry, those are the ones that they describe. But they say that in adults, the instinctive defenses are more complex and habituated. Which one apply to you? And then it goes into the fight, flight, freeze, submit, and attachment cry. As we age, the instinctive defenses become more complex and habituated. So think about that. When we're young, they're just coping mechanisms that we use, this instinctive defenses to protect ourselves. In adulthood, when we go through something really traumatic, we have these same instinctive defenses that show up to protect ourselves. And if we are able to work through them and heal, they don't have to change who we are. They may feel like they change us for a season, but they don't have to change who we are. But if we keep suppressing them or if we don't work through them, it can become a trap and it begins to not only shape our behavior, but then it becomes habituated. And if it stays with this habit and it's habituated, it can shift into personality changes. And so I want to be really clear that it doesn't start with you choosing to do this, but these instinctive defenses, these coping mechanisms can turn into more and more complex patterns that we want to break so we don't get stuck here. So here's a few of the traps that we can get caught in with resentment in particular. One is resentment can feel protective and empowering. So you think about that when I am letting resentment fuel me and I can use it as a protector or a barrier, that can feel good. It can feel empowering. It can feel protective. It can feel like, yeah, I got this. But we're doing it through an energy that with time will actually harm us. It also can provide a sense of almost like a moral clarity, like this knowing I'm right. I'm right, you're wrong. And while you may not be in the wrong and you may be correct, doing it through that energy of resentment can also get you feeling trapped. And then that leads with time to further disappointment in your life, in your circumstances, and the other person. And some of those long-term consequences of that is you stay emotionally tethered to the betrayal. And I've talked about this in past episodes, but I see that. I see individuals who are decades away from the injury and they still feel so tethered to that pain. And also, it can keep you in this hypervigilant state where you are in the state of constant activation. Your fight, flight, freeze, submit, attachment cries are constantly happening. The thing with the constant activation, too, like this is where healing becomes so nuanced, is that constant activation could be that you are actively in an unsafe, emotionally unsafe, or physically unsafe situation. So that activation is there. But it can also be activation because there's these unhealed parts of you that have been stored that have not been worked through. And so sorting through that and getting clarity of what is mine and what are my resentments, which we'll go deeper into how to do that in a minute. But what are those and what are the external factors around me that still feel very unsafe? Sometimes our brain wants to go to the external factors and go, yes, it's clear. It's because they aren't doing A, B, and C. But then once we hit that, we don't look at maybe what are some of our own internal factors that are also playing into it. Because we as humans are very complex, and I guarantee they're both there at some level. Another long-term cost is losing access to joy, softness, desire, and play. I actually, with it being the new year, have been thinking about this of like, how do I this year bring more joy and laughter and light and softness to my life? Because I think for a lot of years, I was in that place of betrayed, this place of bracing, this place of now just doing and moving forward, which was good for me. But I realized that there's soft parts of me that aren't being embraced in the way they used to be. And I'm ready to really start embracing that. And so when we have resentment, resentment does block that joy, that softness, that desire, that play. We're going to take a really fast break and tell you about some of the things coming up at Choose.
If you've experienced betrayal in your relationship and feel like your body is constantly on edge, this isn't because you're weak. It's because your nervous system is trying to protect you. Healing from betrayal isn't about fixing yourself. It's about reclaiming safety, agency, and trust in your own body. Courage to Thrive is a 3.5-day therapeutic intensive designed specifically for partners healing from betrayal trauma. Through trauma-informed education, somatic healing experiences, and empowerment-based boundary work, participants learn how to calm their nervous systems, understand what's happening in their brain and body, and begin creating real safety from the inside out. The Courage to Thrive intensive runs from March 17th through the 20th, and space is limited. Learn more by clicking the link in the show notes or heading to chooserecoveryservices.com/intensives.
Okay, and now back to the episode. If we are working on letting go of resentment, we're not minimizing the betrayal. We're not minimizing the pain, but we're also saying, I'm not going to let this control my life. I want to be in the driver's seat of my life, and I want to be able to bring that joy and softness back into my life. And as such, I don't want to hold on to the pain and resentment, but I also get to still hold them accountable, and I still get to have boundaries. So sometimes that's where I see the brain then flip to is if I'm letting go of this pain, if I'm letting go of the resentment, if I'm letting go of the hardness, now I'm exposing myself to more pain and more danger. And often it's not a cognitive thought, but we feel those worries and those fears. And this is where I want those parts of you that are afraid of that to hear, no, this is where you get to choose to let go of their resentment and work through it and see what's deeper underneath it for you, not for them. That you get to let go of that. You get to start letting that softness back in. You get to let that joy back in. You get to have that freedom while maintaining boundaries, while protecting yourself, while not minimizing what you've been through, because what you've been through has been truly traumatic. So this is where what I'm describing is separating the accountability from your healing. So you get to hold your partner accountable and work on your emotional freedom. Because again, healing the resentment is for you, not for them. And we also want to let that anger be able to move through our body. So the reason that resentment builds is these stored emotions over time. So we want to have that somatic release when that anger does come. We want that anger to move through us. I think of the word emotion, motion, that emotion should be moving the motion through your body. And so we want that to go through movement, through breath, through sound, that releasing, that acknowledging that the anger is there or that frustration or the feeling is there, and then allowing it to move through us instead of be stored in us. And as we do that, that's where we really start to reclaim our own agency. And reclaiming our agency, our choice, is a choice. It doesn't just happen. Resentment thrives when power was lost. And so when we start to reclaim our power and where our power lies, which is in me, the choices I make, what I do, how I respond, when I really start to own that, that's where I am able to release that resentment because I am taking control back of my life. I'm taking control back of that lost power. And so some of the questions just to process as you're thinking about this is what choices do I get to make now? Because you have a lot of them. And sometimes the thought, and this is the one a thought I had, but I also hear a lot of partners say, is Alana, I don't like any of the choices in front of me. Yeah, I have choices, but they're all bad. I don't like any of them. And let's own that. Let's own I have 15 different choices I can make here, and I don't like any of them, but I do have 15 choices. And the brain likes to give you one choice or two. Sometimes it will stretch itself and give you three. But the brain is wired for efficiency, so it tries to give you the least amount of choices possible, and usually they're really black and white choices. So something that can be really helpful and therapeutic is actually write down all of the different choices you have, even ones that you hate, so you can start to see and rewire your brain of, no, I actually do have 15 different choices. And a lot of times the answer is one that you didn't even realize was a choice. But we don't access that and get to that without doing this deeper level work of really seeing and reclaiming where our agency lies. Just a few kind of thoughts as we wrap up is looking at what resentment is and what resentment is not. Healing resentment is not forgetting. Healing resentment is not excusing. Healing resentment is not trusting prematurely. Healing resentment is not letting your partner off the hook or giving them a free pass. Healing resentment is choosing not to live in constant emotional debt. Healing resentment is allowing the feelings to work through you so they don't become trapped in you or in your body. Healing resentment is reclaiming your internal space. And healing resentment is allowing yourself to soften when it's safe within you to do so. So, as you are thinking about and processing your own resentment, if it's there, at what level it might be there, just something to think about is what would it be like if this resentment, that deeper frustration that kind of rolls underneath like a current in you, what if it no longer was in you? What if you no longer had to carry that? What would that feel like? What would that look like? It's not a quick release to get rid of resentment, especially if it's been building over a long amount of time. It unfolds as you start to create your own internal safety, as you start to become more in tune and aware with what is reality and what is your truth. And as you start to really embody your agency, and as that increases, it starts to shed away that deeper pain and that deeper resentment. As we wrap up, and as you're looking at this and thinking about these ways that you can soften and release, I will do a quick plug for our Costa Rica retreat because okay, I am so excited. I went to Costa Rica twice last year, one for a family trip, one I went again to figure out what place we're going for this retreat. Went and checked out the property, fell in love with it. We're going to be going to Costa Rica in July, but this retreat is all about shedding and releasing those deeper things that are within you. It's about moving through your trauma and those pieces that feel like they have become embedded and embodied in you and in your heart and in your soul and in your body. It's going to be all about shedding those and releasing those. So this is a perfect episode that's making me think about it, is if there is this deeper pain, if there's this deeper resentment and you don't want to live in it, and you want to have some help of really starting to embrace that joy and that freedom and shedding the things that are blocking that, join us in Costa Rica. It's going to be me and Amy and Hallie Roderick leading it. And I will tell you, you get a powerhouse of a team, strong, strong women who will help you embrace your strength, but you are going to have fun. You're also going to relax. You're going to be with other women who are committed to healing and moving forward. And it's going to be amazing. So I hope to see you hanging out with us in Costa Rica. And as always, thank you for hanging out with us this week. And we look forward to seeing you all next week.
If you've been doing everything you can to heal, listening to the podcast, reading the books, going to therapy, and you still feel the impact of betrayal in your body and nervous system, this message is for you. The Revive and Thrive Somatic Healing Intensive is designed for women who know that talking and processing have helped and have been important, but also feel that something deeper is still holding on. Betrayal doesn't just live in your story, it lives in your body. And if we don't address the physical imprint of trauma, we may be missing the very thing that could help you take the next step forward. My name is Hallie Roderick, and as a professional and a woman who's walked this healing journey myself, I'm honored to be part of a skilled and compassionate team that holds this intensive. Together, we create a safe, supported, and deeply guided environment where women can heal from the inside out. You won't just learn about somatic healing, you'll experience it through breathwork, movement, nervous system regulation, and embodied practices that help your system finally exhale. You can find all the details in the show notes, and I would truly love the opportunity to spend some time with you in person as we do this healing work together. If you're a man who's trying to show up differently for your partner after betrayal, then listen closely. The Help Her Heal Intensive is a 4-day immersive experience built for men who are ready to take responsibility, build emotional skill, and become safer partners. This isn't talk therapy, it's hands-on training in how to regulate, listen, and respond without getting defensive when things get hard at home. You'll work alongside other men who are also serious about change in a focused, confidential setting, so you're not trying to figure this out alone. My name is Hallie Roderick, and I'm both a professional and someone who's lived through betrayal recovery. Our team is here to give you the structure, the tools, and the feedback you need to show up with consistency and integrity in a way that supports real safety for your wife. You'll leave with a clear plan for how to act differently, communicate better, and continue rebuilding trust when you go home. Check out the show notes for more information or how to register. If you're serious about helping her heal, this is where you start.